Welcome to Henny's four-head pressure fryer lead operation and maintenance live stream. I am JP Perdomo, and I am one of the technical trainers here at Henny in Eaton, Ohio. And today I'm gonna go over some very valuable tips that you can use today to get the most out of your pressure fryers by knowing exactly how to operate and maintain your lid system. One of the things that I'm gonna be covering is the operation. So just the fundamentals of how it works and how to use it. And then the next three topics will be the three main maintenance procedures that you need to execute on a regular basis to make sure that your fryer operates in tip-top condition. Now, one thing that I do want to mention right off the bat is the fact that I won't be focusing on the procedures themselves, because we have them clearly documented on video, and those videos are available in our YouTube channel. So some of those procedures are a little bit time consuming. We only have 30 minutes to go over a lot of information. So again, I won't go over the procedures themselves, but I will focus on why we need to perform these procedures, what happens if we don't perform them, how often we should perform them, and then also some tips and tricks that you can employ to perform those procedures a lot easier. After every topic, I will take a couple of minutes to go over any questions that you may have on the topic that I present, and then at the end, I will do a little recap. I'll give you some additional resources for you to check after the live stream is over, and then that's it, and then we'll move on to our days, okay? So we only have 30 minutes, so let's get started. So the first thing that I want to go over is the lid operation. So how does it work, okay? And I'm going to use this fryer right here to show you how it works. When we place product on the pressure fryer and we close the lid, as we turn the spindle clockwise, the spindle starts applying pressure on the lid itself. As the pressure increases, the lid applies pressure to the rim of the fry pot, and that pressure between the lid and the rim of the fry pot creates a seal by the friction exercised by the lid gasket, which we will see in a few minutes. So as pressure starts to build by the moisture in the product exiting the product because of the heat, that pressure is going to try to escape. As it expands, that pressure activates a locking mechanism that prevents the spindle from being open during the cooking cycle. Once the cooking cycle is over and all the pressure has escaped the fryer, then the locking mechanism that is inside the lid will deactivate, and then at that point you can turn the spindle counterclockwise to open the lid. So that is the basics of the lid operation. So in a nutshell, as we close the lid, it applies pressure on the rim, and then the friction created between the lid gasket and the rim of the fry pot creates a seal that traps all that moisture, all that pressure that allows the product to cook evenly and quicker. Okay, and as pressure is being built, there is a locking mechanism that activates, which prevents the spindle from turning during the cooking cycle. Okay, so that is the fundamentals of how the lid works in pressure fryers. Now, let's move on to how we close it, right? Some of you might be very new to Henny fryers, or some of you maybe haven't even seen one yet. So let me show you how easy it is to close the lid. So to close it, you make sure that the spindle is all the way up by turning it counterclockwise, right? And then you simply exercise pressure on the cross arm, let it latch, and then at that point, turn the spindle clockwise until the spindle turns no more. Now, what is really important to pay attention to right here is the fact that as the spindle stops, the red ball on the spindle matches the red ball on the latch. And the position of the red ball on the spindle should be within the width of the arm. Let me just give you a little close-up. That way you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So as we see, this red ball on the spindle is inside of the width of the arm. So if you currently work at a restaurant that uses Henny pressure fryers, forehead pressure fryers, and you notice that the red ball goes beyond the width of the arm or stops right before the width of the arm, then you need to perform a lead spindle adjustment, which we will cover in a few minutes. Okay, in this case, it stops pretty much right here. It is within the width of the arm, so this spindle is properly aligned. So that's one of the things to check as you close the lid. Now, to open it, let's say that the cooking cycle has ended, all the pressure has been released, the locking mechanism has been deactivated, and now we are free to open the lid. One way to know is because the needle on the pressure gauge is all the way down to 0. So at that point, we turn the lid spindle counterclockwise all the way up, and then we apply pressure on the cross arm, and then with our dominant hand, open the latch, and the lid opens. Okay? So it is really easy to open and close the lid in forehead pressure fryers. Now, another thing that I want to cover, which is fundamental for a couple of procedures that you're going to need to perform, down the road to keep your fryer in tip-top shape, is to know how to separate the cross arm from the lid. So you can do that really easily as well. So you're going to need to close the lid. So make sure that the spindle is all the way up. Close the lid, and then at this point, I'm gonna zoom in real quick so that way you can see it much better. What you do is you take your non-dominant hand, apply pressure on the cross arm, and as you apply pressure with your dominant hand, you're gonna pull the retaining pin. So this is gonna be a little hard, but you're gonna pull it out and keep it out with your non-dominant hand. So right now, your non-dominant hand is doing two things. It's applying pressure on the cross arm and keeping the pin out. And now with your dominant hand, you're gonna lift the latch. Why do you need to know this? You need to know this for two main procedures. One is lid lubrication, which we're gonna cover next. And then the second one is for also reversing the lid gasket. And a third procedure, which we won't cover today, is to replace the lid spring. So those are the three procedures for which you will need to separate the arm from the lid. Okay, now to reattach it, this is what we do. And I'm gonna zoom in real quick. Okay, so what we do is with the spindle all the way up, we're gonna apply pressure on the cross arm until it stops. Once there, we're gonna take the latch and we're gonna lift it and apply more pressure downwards. So, and now notice that it stops right here. Now, once there, you're gonna pull the retaining pin and apply downward pressure until you hear 2 clicks, okay? So we're gonna pull, apply pressure, 1, 2, and let go. And now it is attached, okay? Now, something that may happen to you is that you end up in this situation right here, where now your lid is caught in the latch and it doesn't close. It doesn't close. So then you basically say, oh my gosh, what do I need to do to resolve this issue? So basically you just squeeze the arm with the lid together, and then at that point you can close it with no problem. Okay, so that's just a little troubleshooting that you might have to do as you put the cross arm and the lid together. Okay, so few tips that I can share with you just to kind of wrap up the basic operation of the lid system. One thing is, when you open the lid, try not to slam it, right? So I've seen some crew members go like this, and then they slam the lid, and what happens is that it puts a lot of stress on the lid spring, making it weak. And obviously, the weaker it gets, the easier it becomes to break. And then at that point, you need to replace it, which would, obviously would be a cost that you would have to absorb. So avoid slamming the lid open. The other one that I already mentioned is, as you close the lid, make sure that the spindle is properly aligned. If it is not aligned, you need to perform an adjustment. Also, make sure that your retaining pin is easy to open, right? Because what happens sometimes is, if you don't lubricate, oil is going to start solidifying in the retaining pin knob and basically become glue. And it will be really hard for you to open it with your hands. So something that you would do at that point, if it is really hard to open the retaining pin, is to use needle nose pliers and basically kind of pry it out. That's one little tip. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is to pay attention to escaping steam. If you are cooking with your pressure fryers and you see steam coming to the sides, that means that there is very little pressure being exercised between the lid and the fry pot. And that is allowing pressure to escape, which will affect the quality of your product. So that will be an indication of having to perform the gasket reversal and the lid spindle adjustment, which we will talk about next. And then the other thing that you want to check real quick is the strength of the lid spring. So a lid spring that is in a very healthy condition should be able to hold the lid open at about a 45-degree angle. So notice that it doesn't go down and it doesn't go all the way up. If you have a brand new lid spring, it is possible that it opens the lid because it's super strong, but a healthy one should be able to hold the lid open at a 45-degree angle. If it doesn't hold it at a 45-degree angle, you might be facing a couple of different situations. One is that the lid spring itself is getting weaker and eventually will need to be replaced. And the second one could be that you have some ruptures in the lid liner, which is causing oil to seep into the lid liner and starts to accumulate inside the lid assembly, which makes this lid a lot heavier than it needs to. But again, these are, we're getting into maybe more technical things. So if that is an issue that you're experiencing, you're more than welcome to call your local Henny Penny distributor to have a service technician take a look at your fryer and determine what's the best course of action to take at that point. Okay? So one thing that I want to show you before we move on to the next topic is where to find a video that covers exactly the same content that I just presented to you today. So I'm going to switch my screen to my laptop, and you can see here at our YouTube channel, which you can go to by typing www.youtube.com/hennypennyhelp. You can find a video that will show you exactly how to open and close the lid, and also how to separate the lid from the arm. Okay, so again, this procedure is properly and thoroughly documented on video. So that's why I'm not covering it in detail here in this live stream. So let's go ahead and move on to the second topic, which is lead lubrication. Now, why do we need to lubricate our lead? So we have a lot of metal components interacting with each other, right? Which means that there's going to be a lot of friction. So by lubricating all the different components of the lead system, then we are ensuring that first, those components don't generate any more friction than needed, which means that it's going to minimize the wear of those components. Second, lubricating the components displaces moisture. If we displace moisture, we also displace oils, which means that it is less likely that they get stuck together and eventually making it harder for you to be able to take components apart. And then the third one is obviously ensuring that it also displaces salt and any other type of element that can cause the components to fail. So you should do the lubrication every 30 days, okay? Anyone can do it. It's really easy. The only thing that you're gonna need for that is our Spindle lube, which I have right here. And this is a lube that we have tested and used for many, 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 many years. You can order it from your local Henny distributor by using part number 12124. 12124. And this is the one recommended to use on our fryers. Now, notice that it is, it is not a huge tube. So my suggestion is to, as you have 2 or 3 or 4 more fryers in your operation, to have a few of them in stock, okay? So let's go ahead and move to this fryer on my left to see what are some of the points of lubrication that we need to pay attention to, okay? So the points of lubrication are, we need to lubricate the spindle shaft right here. We need to lubricate the locking collar, the ball bearing, also the retaining pin spring, and we also need to lubricate the ball seat. And for that, I can show you from a different angle. This is the ball seat, and there is also this is the locking pin that activates under pressure to prevent the lead spindle from opening while the fryer is cooking. Okay, so again, what are you gonna need to perform this procedure? So spindle lube, and to perform it is very simple. What you're gonna do is we're gonna take little closer look to the retaining pin spring. So what you do is first you make sure that you clean the spring with a cloth. So you wipe it down, remove any accumulations, and then you simply place a little bit of spindle lube, and then just kind of like rub it in. And then at that point, you can open and close your retaining pin just to let things kind of mix up a little bit. So from there, you can move to the locking collar. And in the locking collar, you will put a little bit right here in your shaft, on your locking collar itself, and in the ball bearing, okay? Now, remember, as we drive this spindle down, it will exercise pressure on the ball seat. So let's go to the ball seat. And so the locking collar will be exercising pressure on the ball seat. The ball bearing will exercise pressure right here on the ball seat. So there's gonna be a lot of friction happening day in and day out between those two components. So it is important to lubricate this every 30 days. So that is basically the lubrication that you will need to perform on the fryer every 30 days. Again, we do have a video that shows you how to perform this step by step on our YouTube channel, okay? So that's why I don't go into a lot of detail, but let's make sure that we make sure that you address all the lubrication points, and that you also, as part of the whole lubrication, that you also do some inspection to make sure that no part needs to be replaced because it is brittle, chipped, broken, or potentially rusted, okay? So those are the things to keep in mind. If there is a part that you need to replace, then you can go to Henny Help and find that part. And I'll show you in the next procedure how to find a part really easy, okay? This is the video that has this procedure thoroughly explained. Again, it's ready to be watched online in our YouTube channel. So anytime you need to revisit this procedure, it is there for you to see. Okay? So the next one is gasket reversal. Now, this is something that you do every 90 days. Now, why do you do it? The reason why you need to do it is because it's what creates the seal under pressure. So the moisture in the fryer pot is trapped. So when you're using a pressure fryer and you see steam escaping from the sides of the lid, that's an indication that you may need to either replace the gasket or reverse it, okay? So now, we do have this procedure documented in our YouTube channel, but I do wanna go over some of the things that you need to pay attention when looking at your fryer to determine whether it needs to be reversed, the gasket needs to be reversed, or if it needs to be replaced. So if you have owned a Henny Penny fryer for 2, 3, 4 years and you have never reversed the gasket, it is probably best that you replace it, right? But if you have recently acquired a fryer and you haven't done it yet, then most likely you are due for a gasket reversal. Reversing the gasket keeps that seal tight, and it also prolongs the life of your gasket because the gasket is constantly exposed to heat, to salt, to oil, and if it is never reversed, it will tend to crystallize. And if it crystallizes, it becomes almost like, it hardens like plastic, and then it is a lot easier to crack. And once it's cracked, you gotta replace it, okay? So what do you need to replace the gasket? You're gonna need simply 2 different screwdrivers, a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver. Now, the Phillips screwdriver is for, and let me zoom in real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. So the Phillips gasket is for loosen these screws up. So you gotta remove them so that way there is no pressure exercised on the gasket as you try to remove it from the fryer. The flathead screwdriver is used to pry the gasket open, right? So this is what you use to pry it open and to pry it out of the channel. Now, my suggestion is to use a screwdriver that has a wide, very, very wide head, because if you use one that is very narrow, you might end up cutting the gasket. Also, if you forget to remove the screws before you start prying the gasket out, most likely you will end up cutting the gasket. And I'm gonna show you what that looks like, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this one, for example, the gasket has been cut, right? Now, this is a brand new gasket, so it's still very forgiving. But if this is an older gasket and you cut it like this, you have to replace it, because the second you start pulling it, it will break open, okay? So that's why we recommend a bigger head for the flathead screwdriver. So you're gonna need a screwdriver, flathead, a crosshead, or a Phillips. You're also gonna need a gasket, right? Which is this one right here. You're gonna need a gasket. You can order it from your local Henny Penny distributor by using part number 16120. 16120. Now, a few tips for when it comes to removing your gasket. Sometimes I get asked, how long will the gasket last? And normally you should be able to reverse it a couple of times. Now, again, it all depends on how much you cook, right? How much, if you have a workhorse that is nonstop cooking, obviously it will take a little less time for that gasket to start cracking or becoming brittle, and then you have to replace it. But I would say what we have seen on average is that you should be able to get about a year out of the gasket by reversing it a couple of times. But once again, it all depends on usage. Signs of wear, if you see the gasket being if the gasket mushrooms, that's an indication that it hasn't been reversed in a long time, and it's better to replace it. If it is cut, brittle, if it is hard, if it feels like plastic, you need to replace it. Now, when you replace it, always remove the gasket little by little. Don't pull from here all the way to the corner, because as the gasket gets older, it is easier for the gasket to crack open, okay? So that's another tip. And when placing it back, when you're placing the gasket back, make sure you can use a little bit of fresh oil to just lubricate it so it goes into the channel a lot better. And always start from the middle and work your way. Always start from the corners and work your way into the middle when placing it back into the lid. If you start from the middle, then the corners might not align. Okay, so always place your gasket from the corners and to the middle. Again, this is thoroughly documented on video. It's available on our YouTube channel, and you can watch it today. Let me show you real quick how easy it is to find a part by using hennypennyhelp.com. And you should see now the site. So basically it's hennypennyhelp.com, right? It takes you to this page. Once in this page, since we're looking for parts, then you click on the Henny Penny Parts Help icon, and that takes you to our parts page. And then right here, you can simply, in the search bar, you can enter lead gasket. And then you hit it right here. And now I see the diagram that shows me the lead gasket, which is part number 12. And then I scroll down to the chart and I find item number 12, which is this one right here. And it tells me that the reversible gasket, the part number is 16120. That's how easy it is to find a part by using hennypennyhelp.com. Okay, we're running a little bit out of time, so the only thing that I have left is the spindle adjustment, which is, again, something that you do every 90 days. Now, if there is anything that you need to take away with you, is this. You cannot do the gasket reversal without the spindle adjustment, or vice versa. They are married, okay? And no divorce allowed here. So it's gasket reversal along with spindle adjustment. Both have to be done. The gasket reversal first, the spindle adjustment is next. Whether you reverse it or you replace it, both have to be done, okay? Again, every 90 days. The reason why you do it is because by doing the spindle adjustment, you're ensuring that you apply the proper amount of pressure on the lid and on the rim, so there is no escaping of moisture or pressure, and while also exercising the optimal amount of pressure that is not going to cause additional wear or tear on the components. Something that I've seen out in the field from operators that don't know this procedure is that they continue to tighten the spindle until it becomes really hard. And what it does is, remember, the locking collar starts grinding on the ball seat, creating all kinds of damage to the lead assembly. So by doing this spindle adjustment, it prevents wear and tear and excessive stress that is gonna cause greater damage to your lead assembly. One of the biggest things, and again, I cannot stress this enough, no pun intended, is that by not aligning or adjusting your spindle properly, and by forcing the spindle onto the lead, what happens is it creates undue stress on the cross arm, and that leads the cross arm to crack. And I'm gonna go back to go here just to show you one thing that you want to check every 30 days as you do your lead lubrication is look for cracks in this area right here on the cross arm. Now, hairline cracks that are contained to this area are okay. But if you have a fracture that goes over the edge of the cross arm, you need to stop using that fryer. Again, let me say that again. A hairline crack right here is okay, it's normal. But if you have a fracture that goes beyond the edge of the cross arm, you need to stop using the fryer, because that cross arm is gonna be very prone to cracking and obviously causing a bigger issue. So now, one of the questions that you might ask me is, well, what happens if my arm is cracked? You will need to get the entire lead assembly. There is no option to get these parts individually, because again, we want to protect the integrity of the lead and obviously provide a safe operation of our fryers. Therefore, that's why we provide the entire assembly rather than individual parts in case that the cross arm is broken. So again, for the spindle adjustment, the procedure is thoroughly documented on video. It is available on our YouTube channel. And to perform it, you just need a couple of different tools. You're gonna need a 3/16 Allen wrench and a 3/32. And these are just used to just loosen up this collar right here that houses the entire shaft of the spindle. But again, the procedure is thoroughly documented on video in our YouTube channel. So you can watch it at your convenience anytime that you need to perform this procedure, so that way the knowledge is fresh in your head. Okay? So if we don't have any other questions, let me do a little recap, because we're kind of going a little over our time allowance. So remember, proper operation and maintenance of the lead system increases fryer uptime, equipment life, and profitability. The lead lubrication procedure must be performed every 30 days, the gasket reversal every 90 days, the spindle adjustment every 90 days. Gasket reversal and spindle adjustment are married. They must be performed together. If you need any parts as you perform these procedures and you see some parts are maybe missing, cracked, chipped, or ready to go out, then you can go to hennypennyhelp.com and find your parts there. Then you can order your parts from our authorized Henny Penny distributor network. If you need more videos, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube help channel by going to www.youtube.com/hennypennyhelp. So make sure you subscribe, make sure that you turn on notifications. We upload new videos every week, okay? So you don't want to miss out on them. And then also you don't want to miss out on any of these free live stream trainings that we offer throughout the year. And then Finally, just to wrap it up, if you still have any questions in relation to any of these procedures that we talked about today, feel free to contact us by email at tservices@hennypenny.com. That is our email address for our technical support department. Tservices, as in technical, tservices@hennypenny.com. Right? You can also call at 1-937-456-8405 if you wish. And you can also chat by going to www.hennypenny.com and look at the bottom right corner. You'll see a chat icon, which will be available between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to leave you with a big thank you for participating today. And we look forward to having you in our next live stream.